Well, I apologize in advance for the glare of the sun shaping in and the fact that my phone is interrupting me the second I go do that because it wants to give me my stream summary from finishing the stream of Cold Steel 4 specifically. But of course, this is not my video on Cold Steel 4. This is a re-record actually of my review on Zero, Trails from Zero. Admittedly, it's because I think I can actually talk about the game a little bit more nicely. Although I still say this is the second worst Trails game I have ever played. When I first finished up streaming this game, which by this point was months ago, oh god damn, the well, I guess I can just actually pull it up because I've actually got it here actually. So I can actually tell you approximately when that was because I'm pretty sure I recorded the trails from my Zero one pretty early on. Yeah, that was back in May. Back in May, I recorded that. For the record, I am here in October to kind of give you a bit of perspective. So 5 months ago, 5 months ago, I actually went ahead and recorded my Trails from Zero video, which was I'm pretty sure like pretty close to when I had uh, finished up uh whatchamacallit. From when I had finished up uh playing Zero, and I was not happy after it. I was kind of upset with it, and then over time, the positives actually started to build because over time I started to realize, oh wait, I screwed up. I need to add some more positives. The score went from being a net neutral 0 to a +6. Now, adding 6 positives to the board is actually not too bad of an idea. I actually don't mind it so much. What I minded was the fact that Trails from Zero kind of wasn't what I was hoping it would be. Now, I know people like to say review the game, review the work you got, not the work you wanted. And that's why I try to be as upfront about that as I can be. But there is no team here. There is no I have no writers. I have no editors other than myself. I have nothing. All I have is myself and my incredibly shining face here because as that sun is really freaking bright and I've got no blinds to cover it up. I could wait until later on in the day, but at the same time, this is basically the best time for me to record. I have very limited record times, right? Granted, with my stream, it's not as much, but at the same time, it's like I would rather just go ahead and, record. But I still say Trails from Zero is definitely one of the weakest Trails games, in my blunt opinion. Trails from Zero, admittedly, this is not one of the. This is not one of the. This is not the one that everybody claims is the best in the series. No, they give that honor to Azure. Trails to Azure, excuse me. And I have to admit, I don't like that. I actually was also kind of there was also another part about this, and that is a note I have here right on my page called "The Fear of Evangelion." Now you're probably thinking, what the funkin' Wagner is that, Blue Wolf? Well, it's a wolfism of mine. This wolf is. I don't have the wolfisms jotted down. At some point, I'm gonna just make a video explaining the wolfisms once I have a list. Once I get like probably about 10 of them, I will go ahead and I will make a list explaining all 10. You know, for the record, I have what is it? I have three that I can think of off the top of my head, which is of course Ava Oscar syndrome, a character who oh, I do shitty things, but you can't hate me because I have a sympathetic backstory. Ain't that a kick in the goddamn teeth when it comes to Cold Steel 4? No spoilers right now. That's going to come, however I plan all of these. But man, yeah, that one's going to be running rampant. Then there's Devil May Cry effect. You know, does the game balance silly and serious well? No, you know. So yeah, and then there's the fear of Evangelion. Now, the fear of Evangelion is the one that is the most relevant to Trails from Zero. The fear of Evangelion, simply put, would be more accurate to call it the fear of popularity. Now, that sounds ridiculous, and I know it does. What it means is you take a work that's very popular, and you're apprehensive about it because you don't want to hate on it and then get blasted for hating on it, right? Like you want to just say that, oh yeah, it's totally fine and it's totally good and all this other stuff because you fear the ostracization of, oh god, what if I don't like it? That's the fear of Evangelion for me. It comes from Neon Genesis Evangelion because again, Neon Genesis Evangelion in my opinion is a overrated, overblown, overhyped, yes, all three, it is an overblown, overhyped, overrated hated series that honestly I fucking hate how fucking popular it is. Because I feel like it's literally a series where we're supposed to be entertained by watching teenagers be psychologically tortured. I'm supposed to find enjoyment in the torment of teenagers. Now, granted, I also did not exactly enjoy my teen years, so that's probably part of it. But it was just one of those things which is still better than my reasonings before. Too complicated. Uh huh. Now I just don't like it because I think it's just bleh. It's I don't like it, right? But then of course that brings us to the point of, well, the Crossbell arc. I had heard so much about how uber important the Crossbell arc is, and it's so important that you view the Crossbell arc because otherwise details won't make sense. Bull. I'm just gonna go ahead and call that what it is. Bull. You don't need the Crossbell arc to understand the story. You don't. It helps. It definitely helps, and there's certain aspects that make more sense, but you don't need it. Let me let you in on a little truth here. Zero and Azure are not the games that made me care about Crossbell. Do you want to know what game made me give a shit about Crossbell? Cold Steel 3. Cold Steel 3, specifically because of the perspective of Yuna, kind of made me feel like Crossbell was a place that it felt more Yuna's passion for it made it feel more real to me than in than all of the entirety of the Crossbell arc. The Crossbell arc felt more like the story of Lloyd rather than the story of uh, Crossbell, right? And it did feel like there was some good stuff on display. And yes, I know some people are going to bring up the whole D therefore G cult and Gnosis and all that crap. Right, because of how important it all ends up becoming, except not really, you know. It Zemuria it ties into the nature of Zemuria as a setting, but let's just say in my setting, I reject that idea and substitute my own. No, right? Because it really just kind of feels like there. Hey, here's this reason of why you won't see other, Legend of Heroes characters showing up from like outside the Trails series. It's like, yeah. Uh, but regardless, I just shrug and move on. Which actually leads us to another good point. Another thing I was harsh on, the localization. So not only is this story not as important as people say, but it's badly localized too. This game is this game has no English dub. Now, you might think that's such a stupid, insignificant thing to pick apart, right? Oh, why would you care if there's no English dub? Right? There are some works that are just better if they don't have an English dub. I would argue Trails is not one of them. Something like Yakuza being subtitles only and being, strictly Japanese, have the Japanese voice actors be the only actors you hear and blah 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 blah. That actually makes perfect sense because Yakuza is, or Like a Dragon as it's known now, the Yakuza franchise is, which is what I'm going to keep calling it that for simplicity's sake, is, how do I put this? The Yakuza games are so steeped in in Japan's culture that putting an English dub on it just kind of feels almost like missing the point. And I don't want to dog, the original, dub from the PS2, but Yakuza is a series that I feel if you left it in Japanese, it would actually serve the narrative, the story better that way. I'm not saying an English dub would ruin it. What I am saying is that it would be better suited to not have an English dub. In other words, I can understand not having an English dub. Sense make? Same with, say, foreign films, like, just to use a random example that showed up in an Amazon package just yesterday for me. Death Note. This is a Blu-ray of the first two live-action Death Note movies, and let me tell you, well, there's another reason for this, but I do actually think that this one it works better to have it be just Japanese audio only. Part of that, of course, is because of the part of that is because of the fact that when they actually did do an English dub for this one, the voice director was asleep at the goddamn wheel because that English dub sucked, which is kind of disappointing because not only was it the cast from the series, but it was also but it but the series was actually the English dub of the series was masterfully done. You actually could theoretically pick a version and you'd be fine with either version. I prefer the English dub of Death Note myself, but that's beside the point. For the anime, to be to be clear. So, yeah. I don't think the subtitles are very good on this Blu-ray, admittedly, but I mean, I leave that alone. I will leave that alone because yeah, that I'm not here to review that. That will not be until next year. Because well, next year, let's just say uh the game reviews are actually going to stop because I have a set of movies I wish to review. God damn it, you evil Daystar, you are such a bitch. Yeah, there you go. The James Bond Blu-ray collection. Everything up to Spectre. I was actually wrong when I said on my stream that it was everything up to Skyfall. No, Spectre was the latest one, uh, which is funny because it feels like Spectre was actually just kind of tacked in. I don't actually remember when Spectre came out, but whatever. Meaning that the only thing that is missing from this one is the last Daniel Craig movie, No Time to Die. So there's that. But anyways, yeah. To get back to my point, which is the whole reason I held up the Blu-ray for Death Note. Note something like this makes sense to leave in Japanese, as is the Yakuza games. There's also Cyber Sleuth, Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, which I obviously, from your perspective, depending on how I do this, I'm recording these out of order, by the way. I'm doing Zero first, and then moving on to the other ones just because I want to get these videos. I want to actually make some freaking progress on this, but yeah. Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth had the excuse of, well, no, yeah, Digimon, excuse me, Digimon was not as proven of a franchise here in the West as it was over in Japan. So not having an English dub actually made a degree of sense. It made less sense when it came to Hacker's Memory, but whatever. I will give Hacker's Memory a pass. The next Digimon games, though, having no English dubs would be awful. Though I can't speak to Digimon Survive, but I do know that uh, uh, Digimon World Next Order, which I believe is a remake of the first Digimon World game. Uh, that one had had an English dub, so I know that. But yeah, this one does not. Trails Frrom Zero does not. To finally get this back around. So why am I so harsh about the lack of localization for the Crossbow arc? Because Azure has the same thing. Why do I harp on this so badly? Well, it's very simple. It's lazy. Simply put, it is goddamn lazy. The Crossbow arc had been hugely demanded. Reverie was not exactly highly demanded. And it kind of felt like NIS America kind of panicked. But the problem is that the Geofront and the fan translation group, the Geofront, because they had been said that they had joined up for the official localization, which they also had essentially the bare bones of the script, which means certain sections, certain bits of text were basically already translated. But it felt like this was such a haphazard translation that it failed to work, in my opinion, and it just fails across the board. But yeah. But that's enough about that. Let's talk gameplay now. Let's see. Well, I can say that I do like this game from the perspective of. I'll touch on that after. Let's talk about positives of gameplay first. I do like the fact that the gameplay of Zero is effectively um, Cold Steel Light, as I like to call it. Right? The counterattack on miss, the enemies running away from you in the field if you're too high level, being able to defeat them by just attacking them on the field, to save you some time if they're running away from you. All that's good stuff. I like it. I really do like it. It makes perfect sense to me. Hey, it's all good stuff. I really enjoy it. The scaling exp is still an issue, but all I can do is just shrug. That's all I can do. I just shrug and move on because yeah. So, shrug. Upgrading weapons is kind of cool, although it is a bit of a pain in the ass. So I guess I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, oh well. Monster chests are a good challenge. I don't think they're worth it, but they are a challenge. I'll talk about that a bit when we start being negative. Yeah, I don't have that much to say. That's basically about it. The Proto Cold Steel gameplay and the thing. Now let's get into some negative aspects of the gameplay, shall we? Because this game scored, after adjustments, negative 29 to gameplay. Now, if you're not understanding the significance of that number, allow me to elaborate on the significance of that number. Negative 29, for the record, is the third lowest gameplay score I have ever given any game ever. Third lowest. Because the other two contenders, the two below it, are Cold Steel 2, which shocked the hell out of me. And then my absolute bottom of the barrel in terms of gameplay, Final Fantasy 13. Hell, Sky 3, for all of its faults and foibles and pains in my ass, was still better on the gameplay axis than this. That one scored negative 24 on the gameplay. Yeah. And keep in mind, that was also with a +6 modification over time. So let's go over some of the stuff I don't care for. Let's start with upgrading weapons, because I kind of mentioned that one already. You have to have the weapon in your inventory, not equipped, to upgrade it. Now, that sounds like such a minor thing, but it is just sort of a hassle because you either need to have weaker weapons on you to swap out so you can upgrade the weapon you want. Because here's the thing you have to hang on to the old weapon. If you're wanting to upgrade, you have to hang on to the old weapon, buy the new weapon, leave it unequipped, then go to the upgrade shop, which is in a separate section of the city, of cross, which is in the downtown district. Meanwhile, you're in Central Square, so you either need the fast travel to be active at this point, because if it's too early in the game, you will not be able to. Fast travel unlocks pretty late, in my opinion, pretty late, and you're railroaded past that. it, and it really does feel like and it just kind of feels irritating because you have to go to separate sections of the city instead of just having it, close by, which is kind of irritating. And you have to have the weapon in your, like I said, you have to have the weapon unequipped, which is just ugh. And you can't not have a weapon equipped, which is the other part of the problem, which means you have to basically either buy weaker weapons to swap, or you need to, never sell the initial equip, so that way you can swap to and swap it back and forth as you go, and that's just a pain in the ass. I don't like the railroading, as I mentioned. What else can I complain about? So, creative chefs wanted. Uh, Cooking in this game is another proto Cold Steel thing. The chefs wanted actually requires different things that are based upon RNG. So yeah, RNGs for one completion. Yay! What a bunch of crap. I don't want to talk about that yet. Fishing is absolute garbage because it's the same as it was in the frickin' in the Sky trilogy. There's two more things I got to talk about the gameplay, and then we'll be on the spoiler section. Yes, already, Eddie. I'm only a half an hour in. This is ridiculous. Let's talk about the quest getting a new doll. So first off, you can miss this quest if you haven't been questing very often. That's problem number one. That's the first problem with this. The second problem is the fight that is involved in this. Now, you don't get a game over if you fail the fight. Here's the problem. What I don't like about the fight is the very nature of it is that it's obnoxious on top of obnoxious on top of obnoxious. See, you have these Tildon dolls and the Angel dolls. The Tildon dolls reflect all physical crafts, and the whatchamacallit, the Angel dolls cancel your crafts. That means you basically have to use, on the Tildon dolls, you basically have to use Tio to get rid of the other ones, and then have Lloyd and Lloyd, Randy, and Ellie focus on the other ones. Because you're probably thinking, well, why can't I just cast spell? Oh yeah, by the way, the Tildon dolls are immune to like everything except Earth, which also sucks, with the exception of Tio's Ether Blaster, which is just. Now you're probably thinking, well, okay, I'll just cast Earth spells on the Tildon dolls. Yeah, see, here's the thing. You can't do that on the in the presence of the angel dolls, because the angel dolls can cancel your arts just by attacking. Yeah. Also, I hope your plan isn't to use the retry offset feature to lower the difficulty, because you don't get to lower the difficulty, because like I said, you don't get a game over when you do that. I was livid when I finished that quest. I was actually angry. Like, I was just quiet after that quest. I was so mad. I just, mm, I hated it so goddamn much. Not as much as this story, though. This nothing burger of a story. So, but before we get to that, there's one more aspect of this game I need to bitch about. New Game Plus. Like with Cold Steel's 1 and 2, it is based on a point system. The problem is that it's a point system that is based upon uh, achievements. In other words, you need to be an achievement hunter to get through to have points for the New Game Plus features. Azure suffers from this problem too, so I will veto talking about that in the Azure video. But good lord, good fucking lord, do I hate the New Game Plus of this thing. A bad New Game Plus, a good New Game Plus is always a plus, but a bad New Game Plus just leaves a bitter taste in my mouth, and I hate it. Speaking of which, let's move on to the story now. So this is your big spoiler warning. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. Now, obviously, I'm not going to spoil Azure here, or at the very least, I'm going to try and keep that to a minimum, but you have been warned. There be spoilers here. So just keep that in mind. So, let's start with the cold open, which is, of course, the pointless flash forward. I'm not going to harp on it too much. I just want you to remember this one, because Azure's going to try to make it important later, which is funny because that actually leads me to a thing I will be talking about both in Azure in regards to the flash forward of this game, and about the ending, the Reverie Corridor at the end of Cold Steel 2. Like I said, I'm going to try and keep spoilers for other games to a minimum, especially ones that are in the future from this game, technically, because, yeah, I'm not Azure's ending. I wish I was kidding. Moving on. So, Lloyd returns to Crossbell after 3 years, mostly because of his brother's death. Okay. The city itself is actually kind of an interesting idea. Liberal before this seemed. I don't want to say it was stuck in the past, but it seemed like your typical Final Fantasy setting. Not too much tech. Not really. Not really any tech, not really any kind of nothing really technology based, Street lights, lamps, maybe the orbments if you want to count it, and effectively, the the effectively the cell phone, the seashell artifact of Olivier's, and that was it, right? The tech wasn't exactly too high. Even in Cold Steel, the technology was bigger, but it was still, relatively mundane for the most part. Crossbell is just high tech. It is effectively a kind of a cross between the two because they have computers, they have long distance communication tools, cell phones basically, in the form of the Enigmas. They have they have long distance communication. They have long distance video communication. They have effectively the internet. That known in lore as the Orbital net. You know, they have all of the effectual underground not military, sorry, industrial complex kind of thing. The machinery of the doorbell being run. Where the hell was I? Right, the Geofront. It's got the Crossbell is technologically advanced. It's got the Geofront. It's got the Orbital net. It's got all that stuff, right? Technology comes from, I shouldn't say comes from, but you hear about the Epstein Foundation. Well, their place to it feels like their place of operation is, of course, whatchamacallit, is Crossbell for the most part, which is kind of a nifty idea. Yeah, if I may be so bold. So, I'm with it. With it. Lloyd is here to because he has effectively joined the police force because his brother was a part of back in the day, and his brother has also been dead for 3 years at this point, which sadly puts its time frame during Estelle and Joshua's training. So there was nothing they could really do to, prevent or do anything about it or whatever. But at the same time, that's part of my first issue with this one. Ugh. Lloyd's story, specifically in regards to his brother, is never really followed up on to any significant degree, in my opinion. And there's my phone telling me that my package was delivered. The package that I opened already. But regardless, Crossbell is a living city, and yeah, it definitely feels like it. Crossbell is definitely it does feel like a lived-in place, and the Crossbell arc definitely uses external continuity the most, but not the best, in my opinion. Like I said, that is still Cold Steel 3 for me. Mostly because there's also nothing inherently wrong with Cold Steel 3's external continuity. Meanwhile, hell, Cold Steel 4's is as good as it is bad, because it's got both. Regardless, I was looking for Cold Steel 4's case earlier. Anyways, I feel like Crossbell is a nice location. I just feel like it's kind of ridiculous. So then we're introduced to the special support section. Lloyd Bannings, Ellie McDowell, Randy Orlando, and Tio Plato. once the game starts characterizing Randy and Tio, they're awesome. The problem is that it takes a while for the game to really characterize those two. And that is the problem. We're also so they come together, they go into the geofront, they save some kids. Then we start to realize the whole point of the special support section. It is supposed to be the Crossbell Police Department's answer to the Bracer Guild. Now, I've talked about this before, both in the Sky Trilogy and in Cold Steel, but to reiterate quickly, it should not be a versus thing. And in many ways, it's not really a versus thing. What it is there are limitations to what the bracers can do. And the SSS are effectively the answer to that. There's stuff that the SSS can do that the bracers can't, and there's stuff that the bracers can do that the SSS can't. So the idea is to work in tandem, which is kind of what I've been talking about this whole time. They aren't the be-all, end-all organization. They just need, when you pair it with a more official organization, it's really good. I mean, hell, this game proves it at the end with Estelle and Joshua joining us, joining the SSS in the final dungeon. As much as that's irritating. It's also worthy of note that there is the Divine Wolves, which are holy beasts, as we learn in Azure. Honestly, I don't feel like that's too big of a spoiler because, oh, because nobody said Zeit was a divine wolf, right? So, yeah, Zeit's just a normal wolf. A nice big doggy. Hey, who's awesome. We are introduced to Arios at that point. I guess we're still on the first page. Then we go and we try to deal with a clash between the Saber Vipers and the Testaments, two gangs that are over in Thing. And we're introduced to Wazi and Wald. Oh, yeah, and the reporter Grace is there too. Who she's not great in Zero, I'll say that. Wazi's pretty cool though. Oh, Wazi's pretty cool. Then we go and we do some stuff. Then we're introduced to Arios' daughter Shizuku, who is adorable and awesome, and I will not hear otherwise. Risha, who is also awesome and a part of Arkansas, the the theater troupe. Then we are introduced to two very important characters, Dieter Kreuz and his daughter, Maribel Kreuz, or Maribel Kreuz, if you prefer. I tend to just keep calling her Maribel because, I don't know, calling her Maribel just sounds weird. Even Maribel, I think Maribel was what the character from Fire Emblem Awakening, how that was supposed to be pronounced, but I mean, nobody's corrected me. Then again, I'm just a shameless, a stinky little speck on the internet, so shrug. Hey, if you're watching this, can you do me a favor and leave a comment? I would appreciate that, actually. I don't beg for likes or subscribes or any of that. Comments, though. I would like some comments, actually. More than anything, it's because I want to actually discuss stuff. That's the whole conceit of me being a copycat of the lore runner and kind of taking over his ruminations shtick. Heck, oh, games are awesome. Let's discuss. Just like how I will be talking about some movies that are awesome, and we'll be discussing that next year. But yeah, Dieter and Maria Bell are very important to the overall lore. Although Dieter more so in the next game, and admittedly Bell as well. But they're both awesome, and I really like them, especially Dieter saving our asses in the finale. That was just awesome. That scene was just freaking awesome. Less awesome is Yona. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that brat. Little fucker. Then there's Yin, the assassin, who may or may not be Risha. It is Risha, for the record. We actually find that out in this game, but the SSS don't find that out until the next game. But we'll talk about more when they find out a little later. So that's cool. So, when we started getting introduced to Risha and the SSS and all that, there is a subplot that comes up, I want to say at the end of chapter 2, where Lloyd and Ellie have a heart-to-heart. And it sucks. Because Lloyd... Okay, so there's a running gag. It kind of showed up with Joshua, but not really. But it really shows up with both Lloyd and Reen, and I fucking hate it every time it shows up. Being polite means you're a womanizer. A guy being polite to you does not, ladies, let me let you in on a little secret as a guy, okay? Let me let you in on a little secret from us as guys. Just because we're being nice to you does not mean we want in your fucking pants. We're just being polite. Fuck off and stop seeing it. And if you're seeing us as potential rapists simply for saying hello, get your fucking head examined. It's that simple. When we are being polite, we are being polite. Anyways. So, yeah. Basically, the idea is if we're acting like Lloyd, we're being polite. If we act like Randy, then yeah, we want in your pants. See the difference? Like, I'm sorry. To claim that Lloyd is unintentionally flirting is flirting just by being polite, right? When you've got a guy who literally flirts with everything with a pulse practically, with Randy, that's just fucking stupid. My note about that says it all. Oh, the Lloyd is an unintentional womanizer gag gets old real fast as intent matters. He doesn't want in Ellie's pants, therefore hitting him like he's trying to get into her pants is fucking stupid. And no, I don't care if that's a translation error. If it's a translation error, it's even fucking worse because that means that the localizers didn't do their fucking did not do their fucking due diligence. They failed. Translation is still writing, therefore it is a writing failure. Moving on. So after all of the Ark and Seal stuff, we actually uncover an assassination plot on Mayor McDowell. Ellie's grandfather, who is awesome, by the way. And I also like the fact that this leads to Ellie wanting to quit that was the end of chapter 1. And because at the end of chapter 2 is actually when the attempt happens, I think. Anyways, So the so Ellie's grandfather comes close to getting assassinated, and Lloyd, Ellie is basically wanting to quit the SSS to help her grandfather because that's her duty, and blah 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 blah. And funny enough, it's actually Mayor McDowell himself who puts his foot down, so to speak, and says, "No, stay with the SSS." I actually like that because it shows just how badass he is. Then again, he also showed how badass he was when he was injured, and he still willed himself to see the end of the Ark and Seal performance. That that worked. That was awesome. So then the SSS basically have to stop a feud between Estelle and Joshua, and then Wald and Ozzy. So they decide to do a foot race, which leads to Lloyd and Randy having a heart to heart, and just kind of him opening up and showing that he's awesome, which is great. Then after we try to deal with a fraud ring, Killica shows up and helps us out. I'm not gonna lie, I actually like Killica in this one. Admittedly, I was looking at that going, wait, entertainment advisor? But I thought you were going to be working with the Calvert government. Oh, she is. Her cover story is the entertainment industry thing. Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah, Killica is effectively to Calvert what Lecter is to Erebonia, if you understand the distinction. Which is funny because Lecter's also in this game. He doesn't do much, but he's here. So, I haven't mentioned Ravache yet. The Mafia. Which is the other part of the problem. This game has a severe problem with shifting villains because we think it's going to be the street punks, which then leads us to the mafia. Which okay, that makes sense for the most part. Or then then we're trying to deal with Ravache, which we get into multiple skirmishes with them, and then we try to infiltrate an auction that they hold, the Schwarz auction, not to be confused with Julia Schwarz or Reen Schwarzer. Seriously, franchise, knock it off with that. You already have the problem of the continent having like three different characters all with the same name. For God's sakes. I think there's like three Beckys and like three Luises or something stupid like that. Or two or three Luises. Just, ugh. This is also, the Schwarz auction is also where we find out that Wazzy has a job as a host. I don't think I need to explain that any further. Effectively, he is his other job, other than leading the Testaments, is to well spend nights with women. They don't elaborate on all of what he has to do in any given situation, but though I suppose that depends on the woman who hires him, isn't it? I don't know the rules, and something tells me I don't want to know. So Wazzy helps us out during the auction. You pick a member of the SSS to go with Lloyd to accommodate it. I of course showed all of the Schwarz auction attires because of course I did. And then we find a girl locked in a trunk. Kia. So, yeah, we're all freaked out about that. Like, a girl in a trunk, what the hell? That was supposed to be a doll. That was supposed to be a Rosenberg doll, not a living girl. All I'm gonna say is the word homunculus and leave it at that for now. Yeah. We'll be meeting we meet a couple of other homunculi in the form of a certain couple of OZ units from the Black Workshop. We'll talk about that more in Cold Steel 3. For the record, the games that I'm doing Wolf Den proper videos on this year are Zero, Azure, Cold Steel 3, Cold Steel 4, and Trails into Reverie. So, there you go. Hence why I'm getting this one out of the way now. So, also, I love Kia. Can I just say that? Kia is adorable in Zero, especially with her Japanese voice. It's the one advantage there being no English dub, but honestly, somebody could tell me, oh, you should play it in Japanese, and I could actually see myself being like, well, okay, let's try it out. And then hearing her Japanese voice would just be like, oh my god, that is adorable. I mean no disrespect to the voice actress who plays her in Cold Steel 4 in English, but man, do I prefer her Japanese voice. He's in Zero and Azure. It just sounds so adorable. Now, this is where Ravache actually is the first. This is the first time Ravache sweats, by the way. Because Ravache was like, wait, there wasn't supposed to be a kid in a trunk. Oh fuck. Uh, Crossbell, CPD. We want a truce. Yeah, it's the first time Ravache ever looks scared, and yeah. So then the SSS start working with the Bracer Guild. Kia and Shizuku become fast friends. Anton shows up because we've got to have an Anton case. Why not? I've got nothing to say about that. Then then and Heiwei is hated, and we start to realize that there's a problem because this is when some blue pills start showing up. Because, well, we're dealing with devil worshippers now all of a sudden. A cult known as the D, therefore G cult. Oh, by the way, we start to piece this together, and Detective Dudley, who I also haven't mentioned yet, decides I used to be a stubborn jackass, even though Chief Sergey literally says point blank, Inc., working with the SSS will further your investigation. And you're supposed to be smart enough to recognize and trust Sergey. You asshole. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Dudley, if you can't tell. So Ario starts to piece some stuff together, and then Sergey steps up, up to assist us. Then we go and we infiltrate Ravache and find it empty, which leads to us discovering a scarred badge. Ravache effectively trying to claim that they killed Lloyd's brother. They did not, by the way. The conspiracy goes a lot deeper than Ravache. which is funny when you consider Ravache are the mafia of Crossbell, but let's not get into that. One of the two, I would say. Or I guess you could call it the mafia and then the Yakuza, effectively, because of Calvert and all that. But regardless, this is where we have the reveal that a doctor by the name of Gunter, or Joachim Gunter, is the true villain because he is a priest of the D, therefore G cult. This is where the final chapter just loses me, and I basically stopped giving a shit about the story. Let's talk about the importance of the D, therefore G cult, shall we? The only relevance they have is whatever the hell a certain overlord from Cold Steel 4 was going on about. That's it. That's the only relevance the D therefore G cult has. They're mentioned a few times, but outside of that, one cutscene in Cold Steel 4, which had nothing to do with Cold Steel 4, by the way, that's it. That's all we got. Really? Like I said, and even in the context of this game, they're just there. There's nothing to them. And that's the problem I have with this entire game's story. It just doesn't work as a story. It feels like it falls flat, you know? It almost feels like all this Gnosis shit should have been the beginning of one game instead of us wasting an entire game to go through it. Trails from Zero, in my blunt opinion, is the most skippable of all of them. The only thing you need to know going into Azure is that there was a cult. It's known as the D therefore G cult, and Lloyd is chasing them. Is chasing the last remnants of it. That's it. It's an admittedly nice ending, and I do love the caught you scene. Which I didn't even write down here because I didn't have any reference for it. But at the end of the day, there is no real impact. The D therefore G cult is just there. They're not intriguing, they're not engaging, they're not anything. They're honestly a giant nothing burger. I just Trails from Zero is honestly one of the most skippable game. It is the most skippable game in the franchise. And I mean that sincerely. You are missing next to nothing if you skip this one. Literally. As the only things you need to know, Azure provides in its backstory section. Trails from Zero is not a game I recommend people play. It's not. Azure is the better game. It is better on the gameplay axis as well, although I wouldn't call it good, but that's beside the point. Zero is only one that I would recommend people play for completionist's sake. If you have to play every game in the series, then go for it. But for those that don't give that much of a shit about completion or playing every game in a series, you don't need this one. And I don't think you ever will need this one. Maybe the D therefore G cult will become more important later. Maybe, maybe there's something. Hell, for all I know, I've reversed the cover, by the way, on this. For all I know, this game could actually make the D therefore G cult more relevant. I don't know. All I do know is that that's Trails from Zero. A bad game. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. It's not a good game. It's okay at best, but this isn't anywhere near peak Trails. And the only reason this game isn't at the bottom of my ranking of the whole series so far is because Cold Steel 2 disappointed me so hard and fell so fucking harshly that I just can't help but pity Cold Steel 2. Zero's not that good. What a shame. Thankfully, the next game in our lineup is a lot better. But we will discuss that next time with Trails to Azure. Blue Wolf Alex the Lore Walkers signing out. Have a good one. Later.